kind of practice today, just kind of letting them get off the feet a little bit?
A little bit. I mean, we've had some physical practices. This was the 4th day in a row. I know you'll probably roll your eyes because of, you did 3 days or 4 days, but those guys have been going pretty good clip.
Yeah.
We had 2 physical days, and so just trying to take some of the stress off the joints. But we needed to get a lot out of today, and they did, and that's what helps when you have a focused team. Those guys don't know how to practice at that speed, so we were able to get a lot done.
And any updates on the guys who weren't at practice today?
You got names?
Patterson, Hennessy, Cornell Armstrong.
Patterson, I said earlier in the week, CP, it's going to be, a few weeks, right? That's what I believe I said. If I didn't, you can fact check me. If I didn't, I apologize. But, yeah. Who else? Hughes being the same boat as CP. Armstrong, hoping to get back. He won't play this game, but hoping to get back early next week, hopefully from Pittsburgh.
Did you say a few weeks? I'm sorry.
I mean, 2. What is 2? Is few or 2? I don't know.
I don't know. There's
It's
a lot
just
of
vague.
people about
I don't know either.
But you said a few. So you're
Couple. I'll go couple. Again, I don't have a hard deadline. I'm not, not the doctor, and everybody's body's different, but nothing we're concerned about long term.
Is there a hope or I guess maybe expectation that we'll be back by week 1? Or?
A lot of guys. Again, I'm not the doctor. Let's talk about this maybe, that bye week. See where we're at then. We still got 2 weeks from the opener from then, right? I guess I'm counting this week too, Josh. So 1, 2. Let's go to an update after Pittsburgh going into that bye week before Labor Day. I'll have a clear picture in all seriousness.
Coach, how do you go about kind of player and team evaluation when you have joint practices versus preseason games? Because I know it used to be the old standard was just the games, and now over the years it's kind of shifted.
Yeah, a lot more people doing joint practices. Becoming more common. It depends who you practice against, what kind of practice they want to run, how many reps you're getting. We've always tried to practice with teams that we feel, there may be a scheme thing we want to look at. There's also a deal where you don't want to go out and have 15 fights. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, guys get heated. Maybe there's a little pushing and shoving. But when you have those, clear out brawls, I mean, that's a bad look. Those are penalties in the game. And, we don't want to see those. So that's what we're trying to get accomplished in the joint practices. And then you got to assess, how many reps you want to have in the preseason game. So that's kind of what we've done. Kind of use a rough estimate of about 180 snaps, give or take, if you're saying 60 per game O&D. And how do you want to balance those out to give people an opportunity to make the team and also get the guys that you're projecting to be the starters, how many reps they're ready to go so they can play a full game on September 10th. So they're just balancing a lot of things like that.
So then have you kind of thought for this Friday's game, just?
I'm not going to give you a number. They're going to play, but, it's balancing this week and next week. But, yeah, they'll play. Only people that won't, but if somebody were holding out, for injury or somebody, hey, they need a couple days, and we'll get them in the Pittsburgh game.
You just play it by ear. You just want to see a good opener drive.
No, we got a number in our head. Yeah, it's more of a rep count.
Okay.
If we were to go 3 and out, that's not what we're looking for.
Right.
If you had one play and somehow it becomes something explosive and a long touchdown, which happens in the preseason times with we're going to go back. We need the reps. It's not just about the play. We're not looking for style points. Like I said, you're not going to see us try to scheme up something and get Bassey and the hype team off a throwback or something like that, or a tight end high. We're not looking to do that to pad numbers. We need to execute. We need to fill pocket. We need to block. We need to tackle, like the fundamental. And we need to, it's more about the reps. Certainly you don't want to go out there and go 3 and out and look poor. So. Yeah, that's more of it is. It's more of a reps. If that takes us in a certain part of the game, it does.
A guy like Calais, I know he missed the first bit of camp, but just having his leadership and presence out there, what can that do for y'all? And have you seen any of that effect so far, even just in camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's, Calais is. I mean, there's the thing I appreciate about this team and the guys like Calais and Grady and Bud and David. And you see Jake, certainly, Jake Matthews, he's kind of the older guy on the offense, guys take on their own unique leadership styles, but you got real leaders and they do it their own way. And there's a lot of things out there that are perception and maybe their social media hype, and they're just not true. But what I appreciate about the guys we have, these guys have real leadership traits. There's not some phony narrative that people try to hype to justify certain things. These guys are real. Calais certainly fits that mold, and we got a few other guys that's what I appreciate. It allows you to go out and have a practice like we did today, where it doesn't feel like I'm telling guys to focus like I'm a pee-wee coach.
I know you've talked about DeMarco Hollins a lot, but how have you seen him grow throughout this process?
It's like a lot of those rookies. I mean, they're gonna have their ups and downs. He certainly flashed in the preseason game. Let's see if he can, take another step. There's some other things, technique stuff that we need him to continue. The habits, the day-to-day. That's what gets a lot of these guys, these young guys. It's such a long journey. It's the ups and downs. You have a really good game, and you come back. If you don't have a good practice, or you have a couple bad days, or they're just not as focused, that's not going to benefit us in the long run. So it's a day-to-day. Those are the daily habits, I guess the best way to put it, you're trying to build. And know it's a long journey. But he certainly took a step in the right direction, but we got to continue to see that.
Coach, you guys go through the whole process when it comes to free agency, you and Terry, and when you have an idea of what those guys are going to be when they first come in. But how have you been feeling about the free agency class, the guys that you brought in this year?
Yeah.
How's those guys been performing for you?
Yeah, I guess the best way to put it, you don't want to go out in free agency and divvy up that part of the salary cap pie, however you want to look at it, and think there's a different person or player you're getting, and all of a sudden you see it, you're like, oh, okay, we got an issue. I do not feel that way. So we felt pretty good. Again, you just never know how somebody's, year to year, how they adapt. Sometimes it takes a guy a minute or two, adapt to a new city, scheme, new building, whatever it is. But those guys so far been exactly as advertised.
And I was talking to MK probably about a week ago or so ago, and he was talking about how he's learned so much from those guys. Is that kind of part of why you bring those veteran guys in?
Yeah, you want the right guys. I mean, it's a consistent messaging. But if you don't have the right leaders, those guys are going to walk in the locker room, and it's like, so they need to see, and the right guys need to be the mentors. Because I've seen the wrong guys, and it doesn't go well, regardless of whatever the public perception or phony social media perception is of somebody trying to justify something. But when you got real guys in the locker room like that, those guys also want to help guys. We've also seen guys that act like they're leaders, and they're like, hey, I don't want this guy taking my job. When you got guys that are secure in their own skin, they understand that, they bring guys like AK along. I think Bud has certainly done that with them, and that helps, because Frank Bush has done a phenomenal. But it's like when you got it's like a village, it's like it's not going to be on one person, and then ultimately it's on the player themselves to, stop having conversations and show us the action that you're actually doing it. And I feel good about AK. I think he's proved that so far.
When you build a roster, whether it's preseason or 53, how much do you take into account maybe trying to have that type of one of those type of mentor guys?
It's got to be the right guy. If the guy can't play anymore, again, you're going off nostalgia, and those guys know quicker than anybody. That's like I said, a lot of times it's like you don't even have to say anything. They know what's going on. We all see the same tape. If somebody can't do it anymore, it's great. They may like the guy, but they're like, this guy can't help us. Then you got an issue too. That's another set of problems.
Arthur, the last 3 seasons, Brady's played like 850, 860.
But a lot of snaps.
A lot of snaps. How much will your added depth enable you to rotate and keep him fresh?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, that's the hope, is to get that number count down. I think it certainly will help us as a team. I think that helps you on the defensive line when you've got more guys that can roll in there. Then and he's in unbelievable shape. But again, nobody's superhuman. So that'll certainly help. So those critical downs, you're maybe a little bit fresher, and then playing the long game. Hopefully, you're in big games late in the year. But that's certainly the intent there and the design, and hopefully it works out that way.
Obviously, he's not a guy who's going to complain about playing.
No.
Snaps at him, but
No.
Does he sort of know? Or
He knows. Yeah, again, I've got a lot of flaws, but very direct. Here's the plan. No different than when we signed Calais or Bud. Here's what again, you have the conversations. There's nothing worse than all of a sudden you do whatever you can to get the guy to sign, and you talk about trust. I think you got to build that trust every day. It goes both ways. And we know we're not going to be perfect, but I think when you have those conversations up front, they know what to expect. And so we certainly have those honest conversations. Now, again, if we get short a couple guys, I mean, it may be a game where, I mean, that's what you have to do, whatever you do to win the game. But if you have that depth, that'll allow you to stick to that plan.
Coach, what are you hoping to see from Desmond in the opener?
Same thing, like those other guys, we need to get another step, practice, joint practices, there's consequences. We talk about that all the time. You got to feel a real pocket. The only way to do that, I mean, I guess we could, but I don't think that's the smartest thing if we're letting those guys light the quarterbacks up in practice. I mean, but so they got and I only laugh because I've seen somebody get lit up in an NFL practice at quarterback, not intentionally. So, anyways, so just to feel the real consequences of the timing. Sometimes you may let something develop that speed of that not going to really be there. So you want to see that. You want to see a clean operation, and just get us one step closer to playing a whole game September 10th.
Then I talked to Coach Holmgren recently about the development.
I love your name drops.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But what are some of the key markers? But that's different from what they had to do and what you all got
Sure,
to do.
the way the practice set up. I mean, speaking of a name drop, I remember Jim Zorn, working for Jim Zorn. He took Mike's Holmgren's, I'm assuming it's Mike Holmgren, because he's not just some guy on the street named Holmgren, right?
No,
He's talking about Mike
yeah.
Holmgren. Okay, just making sure to fact check you. Because you could be vague, and then people saying, oh, wow, he talked to somebody. So anyways, and the way those camps were set up, that was pre-2011 CBA, and so they did things different. And then we worked, Dave and I, Ragone and I both worked with Matt Hasselback in Tennessee, and picked Matt's brain about how they did stuff and the way they called. Everybody's got a little bit different. And they had a lot of success, and a lot of coaches got hired off those trees, but everybody kind of did it their own way. I mean, you talk to Matt Schaub or Gary Kubiak, they had their own way, the way they set the game plan up and called it in. So certainly, you got to do what's best for your team, but those old West Coast guys, the way they set up practice, the rules were different. You had a lot more reps. I mean, I believe those guys would probably get a lot more 7-on-7 reps, so a lot of those timing throws. And it is what it is. I could sit here and complain about the reps or the time, but you adapt to the circumstances you're given. But those guys and the way that he came up in the league, and again, I've never talked to him, but I've read a lot about him, right? When Bill Walsh hired him out of BYU, he was looking for the best quarterback coach in the country, and I forget who gave him the name, and he hired him. And those guys took off from San Fran and had a great run in the National Football League. And a lot of people, grew and learned from him.
Going back to the Dolphins game on Friday, you obviously didn't play a lot of starters. Parker, has he played almost the whole game for the offense? Is that evidence of just the?
No, there's sometimes, it's a good question because sometimes people read into why they're playing late. Again, you're trying to divvy out the snaps 180. Just where Johnny was at, Pruitt taking a lot of reps in there, and then we feel good about the tight end depth in that room. So again, you have an honest conversation because again, they can look in there if you want to play mind games okay, why am I playing? And New and Kyle and Michael are not out there. And then the other issue was that Johnny Fitzpatrick was dealing with something that we had to hold him out for. That was not necessarily an injury related, but something we had to be careful with. And so we had to hold Fitzy out. So we only had 2 tight ends up. And Hesse's not a guy that can play him. But yeah, sometimes you can look at those play sheets. It's the same thing with AK and D'Angelo. We anticipate those guys having a role here, but they didn't play a lot of meaningful snaps late in the year. They need those rush snaps. And, we held a lot of older guys out, so then some of the older guys will play. Again, rough estimate, 180 snaps. How do you want to get those? And you need enough passing downs and get them the real rush. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Anything else? All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.